Party on.
Yes, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I am here in the house. It is my pleasure to welcome the man, the mystic that surfs on the waters that all of the other schizos drown in. Man, one of the things, this is Slick Dissident, known by many names. We could call it Slick Dissident. You find him, I put some show notes, find him over on YouTube and all his work, slickdissident.com. He's got some legendary work. So I would love to introduce some of your work as we weave in and out of this topic tonight on green speak and the Lingua Verde. And I think that it's going to be a fun topic because you can kind of only surround it. You can never really get to it or define it. And this is because it's a topic that eludes the academic description of it. And yes. and we realize it through our subconscious. And so Gabriel, would you mind telling you dropped a profound bomb last time we were together. We were on Chance's channel doing a talk about the Greenman, and you can find that over on the Innerverse channel. And you opened up the conversation to highlight some of your work with this great realization. Do you remember that?
Yes, that was so beautiful. And it was totally right on the fly. It was we were talking about the Greenman. The Greenman is really integral to your work. And you were doing a presentation on it. And it was, I believe, Chance, you, and was PK with us in that weave?
Yes, and PK was there.
And PK was there. It was the one about the Greenman and kind of talking about the Greenland was really hot on the zeitgeist. And in the middle of the flow, it just dawns on me that the word "a green man" is an anagram for Enneagram. And that was so rewarding to me. And, you know, you were you were digging into the acanthus plant.
Yeah.
And how it's depicted with these floral designs on the top of the pillars in Greco-Roman architecture. And I kind of look at my own project with the way this whole thing has, like, the tarot cards are almost like a Monopoly board, you know, in the way that I have them fanning out so that they complete a circle, kind of makes the acanthus leaves that are depicted as the mane, the wild hair of the Greenman. So yeah, when we realized that, I kind of look at my own project and I'm like, wow, the Greenman is even hiding out in my own revelations. Yeah, so that was really fun to realize that with you in the spur of the moment, on the fly, on a live stream.
Isn't it? I think it is super cool because when we're talking about the Greenman, we're talking about a mythological figure that is pointing us towards this language, this green speak language, which is something maybe if we could describe it, it could be like the Adamic language. It could be like the language that was within the garden where when something was named, it not only pointed towards the truth of what it was, like language does today, but it also, the word itself included an essence of what of the participation, of the communication of participation, right? And so I think one of the things that I love about your channel is your work with the Enneagram, and of course the territories map too is awesome too. But your Enneagram work, because it is like a Greenman puzzle in a way. It is this cipher for finding the revelations of not just the word. So if we could take away, we could say any word we want. We could call this. We could call it ooga booga boogalooga ooga, but it's not called that, is it? It's called something that has not just an intrinsic meaning that's pointing the viewer to that, but embedded inside of that is the seed to unravel something that is personal, something that is pointing to the truth. And I think one of the greatest tools that you have a really great skill set over is using the Enneagram to find a way of watering, tending, understanding those seeds, harvesting those seeds, planting those seeds again.
Yeah, man. Yes. I love pointing out one of my philosophical, uh, it's kind of a hero, but he's also a worthy enemy as well. Friedrich Nietzsche. And Friedrich Nietzsche was a philologist. And he was, I believe, tapping into this fundamental Adamic intentionality behind words. And he was doing that about 125 years ago, plus his lifetime beyond that. So he was living in a time when access to the meaning of old words and old cultural symbols and I want to say cultural presumptions were still very potent in his lifetime. And so I look to him and his study around language, and he has revealed a great amount of treasures that our culture is still built up upon. But yeah, the fact that he was a philologist really makes him kind of an inevitability in the field of understanding how these words are still holding their Greek, phonetic Greek truths, not just Greek, but for me, a lot of my revelations have a Greek flavor to them. And one example is like PK has brought forward this old Greek word called dikaiosune.
Mm-hmm.
And dikaiosune, we translate it to the word justice. And when we do that, we just pick up the word justice and move along as though it's sufficient. But there's so much more between what dikaiosune was to the Greeks and what we just call a word, justice. And in this dikaiosune, it's still here. We're still using it in the same phonetic arrangement when we say the word discernment. And dikaiosune, judgment, is also translates to discernment. And if you write the word dikaiosune and you write the word discernment, they are philological relatives to one another. And then we still do this even in another word that we translate justice is sometimes synonymous with righteousness. Righteousness. Well, we go back to dikaiosune, and dikaiosune also meaning discernment. Well, discernment is right choiceness. And so this old word that everybody thinks is, it's all Greek to me. I'm not going to look into its history. It has a lifespan, and in its lifespan, it has kind of come to the surface in these other phonetics that we take for granted. So yeah, right choiceness, discernment, these are all aspects of dikaiosune in its original intentionality. Because when people think of justice, they think, I got to go to that building downtown. Justice is it's an institution. It's totally a captured industry. And so when people think of justice, they think of a lawyer and a judge and a stenographer, you know what I mean? But they don't think that it really is more immediate to your individual experience in your right choiceness and your discernment. Yeah, there's quite a few words like that where it's like the sounds that they used for these words are still serving us. Those phonetics still serve us in a really rewarding way, I think. So yeah, that's a fun little Twilight reveal.
Is dikaiosune, is that also a somebody of the pantheon? Is it like a something that's conveying like a personage to this idea as well?
Yes, a lot of people will point right to Athena immediately, and they wouldn't be wrong. They wouldn't be incorrect. But however, I believe that this dikaiosune, I have reason to believe that Athena she evolved. Her name, Pallas Athena, in its truest, purest form means wisdom, and that is Athena proper. But her culture has gone through erosion, degradation, and expansion. The Romans kind of picked up what Athena was, repackaged her in a couple ways. And so for the Romans, Athena was it was very important that she didn't just symbolize wisdom anymore. She had to symbolize victory. She had to symbolize accessing the agon, accomplishing the highest achievement of the collective. And so Athena to the Romans became Dike, and Dike means victory. And so they didn't value wisdom as much as they valued all your trophies and all the proof of all your success. So Athena becomes Dike to the Romans a little more. So the word Dike has her victory aspect in it. So it is Athena. Dike is pointing at Athena, but only at a certain point, maybe in time, but more so in culture, when she became, it became more laudable to be victorious than it was to be wise, so to say. So yeah, she is Athena, but in a different iteration of her value to a culture at a particular time.
That reminds me, this was last year. My little one was 2 years old, and it was the summertime. And we're driving around, and he goes, "Que bella, Papa, the moon." And I'm driving, so I stop at a stop sign. I look around, and I turn to him. I said, "What? Where?" And he goes, "Not my hand, Daddy, the moon."
Wow.
I'm looking at where he's pointing, right? And so he whipped that, what is it that we're pointing to, philosophical question out of the mouth of a babe, right? And it really blew my mind because, of course, the moon was beautiful, but that moment was beautiful because here is exactly kind of what you're talking about, is where Daikyo is pointing. There is this aspect of victory and Athena that is we're talking about this participation and an action rather than something that is static that can be defined and wrapped around. And that's kind of a really great example of the green language, of this Lingua Verde, which is participation and sharing an experience of nature. And yeah,
man. Yeah. I have a one thought that comes to mind when, in regards, like you mentioned earlier, that the academia will not tread in the domain of green speak and these poetic correspondences of language, that they just can't, that they're not allowed to. I don't think they're allowed to be dual-minded enough to stand in the realm of the green speak. But I think that oftentimes something I benefit from is when things are like I was saying, Daikyo, if you write the word out and then you write the word discernment underneath it, there are actual cultural rules. Like, the Greeks would never end a word with an M. They would only end words with N's. And so when you're translating through time, N's and M's become interchangeable, almost negligible in their difference. And so that translation between those two words, it kind of reveals that there is a lot of consistency going on. But those subtle differences, the academia, I believe they have a reflexive parsimony. They prefer for things to only be as simple as possible. And if it's elaborate at all, then it's too complicated. It must be abandoned. And so the people who have an affiliation to simplicity, a fixation on parsimony, I would coach them to broaden their horizons and embrace what I call plausible reliability.
Yes, that's great. I love that.
Yes. And when two words are like one letter off, or, if, or there's, because it's gone through different cultures, it gets eroded a little bit. And so people see these slight differences in the words, and they think that, and they turn a blind eye thinking there's no treasure here. And I'm telling people, I'm encouraging them to access the plausible reliability of these connections. That their differences are not sufficient to disregard their similarities. You know what I mean?
We've all done it when we're writing an email and the N is right next to the M on the keyboard, right?
Right.
We've all made a typo. That reminds me of St. John's wort. Can you see this plant?
Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
So St. John's wort is, there's so much green speak to this plant. The botanical name comes from, the Latinized name comes from the Greek, which is, the Greek word for it is hypericon. But the botanical name is hypericum. So there's the N, there's the M. So hyper, above.
Yes.
Icon, our specter, the image, the projection of what is it that we're projecting, or that's leading us towards the truth that could eventually become idolatrous in its own self, right? Like there could be an icon can turn into an idol, but it's not necessarily an idol. And one of the things that I think about in this projection of idolatry is that NASA will always qualify that this is an image of space, right? This is an image. This is the icon of space. And it's in actuality, it's not an icon. It is what's the word I'm looking for? That is a
simulacrum.
Simulacrum, yes, a complete fabrication, right? But how these presentations of simulacrums, which is pointing the way towards something, becomes idolatrous in nature. And so here's St. John's wort, and it could be called Ooga Booga Luga Luga, but we call it St. John's wort because there's so many things, because it blooms on the feast of St. John, which isn't maybe just an arbitrary placement of, I call it corporate rebranding holidays, right? So it was the summer solstice. Guess what? We need some new shareholders in town, and in order to get them over on our side, we're going to have to rebrand our holiday to call it the Feast of St. John. Go ahead and celebrate, but we're going to do it with this guy's name. But of course, St. John can also have that idolatrous image attached to it, because St. John is, when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about an archetype. I'm thinking about it as an emanation of something that speaks to our psyche. And that's why St. John, it might be cognate with Oannes, who is the fish head god that loses his head and is carrying the wisdom. And so St. John's wort, in the word wart, we have, which is cognate to WYRT, which means uncanny or supernatural. And that's become the word weird. Okay. But also word, the word of St. John. Just by talking about this plant, we are subconsciously dialing up the words of St. John the Baptist, perhaps, but also maybe even the St. John the Evangelical, that it's like, in the beginning was the Word, and then all of the book of Revelations. But really, it's St. John the Baptist. And what did he say? He must increase, I must decrease. This is astrotheological. We're talking maybe about the heroes of the sky being Aquarius with its head that gets dunked under the horizon just in time for Orion to start coming up in the fall and the winter sky. This greater hero increases as the decapitation of the Aquarian man with his back to the camel and his back to the beehive, living off of being a wild man. I got this St. John's wort jingle. Can I play it for you?
Yeah, buddy. Yes. Oh, give thanks and praise.
I just wrote this one. My son loves it. Well, old St. John, he was a wild man, dipping and a splashing in the River Jordan. Went to the woods with his cut off jorts. Guess what he saw? St. John's wort, holy leaf. St. John's wort, y'all best believe. St. John's wort on the peak of the sun in the north. St. John's wort.
Bro, give thanks and praise, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, Kyle, that is amazing, my friend. With the cutoff shorts, that was so glorious.
You got to rhyme it with. He's probably had the jort version of the tunic, you know. It's like camel skins and stuff like that. That's
wow, dude, that was so glorious. I love it.
So I think that one of the things that I can do with the doctrine of signatures and looking at this plant and all the ways that it reveals its name, it's the way that it has been called, the way that it's assigned to this archetype of St. John, or how the Greeks called it over the icon, and banishing the specters and keeping the projections or emanations away, or bringing in or holding the capacity of the light at the summer solstice and giving that light back to us. Hey, I was giving my light away. I was consensually allowing my power to be drained, and that comes in we feel our power in our solar plexus. This is why St. John's wort is such a great liver helper and relaxer to these particular organs. And so I'm looking at all the signatures of St. John's wort, the corpuscular and anti-corpuscular rays of this sun that's, the way that emanates. Whenever I see those corpuscular rays, I'm like, ooh, that seems a lot closer than it is. It's just got this, the word that comes to mind is heaven. Like, that's heaven right there.
Nice.
And then there's this little leaf on St. John's wort that when you hold it up and you backlight it, you could see the little holes that are inside of it. And that's always a great signature to me of how we're leaking our light, how our whole, where are our biophotons, if you want to call them that, spreading out from the pain that I've had, trying to be present, but I'm in pain, or I have this frustration, I have this resentment. I'm thinking about this Etsy review. Gosh, I'm a small business owner. It says, oh, Kyle, you it arrived on time, packed up great, product works awesome, great as described, 2 stars. And here's me leaking out my light, looshing my light, looshing out my light because all the 5 stars, all the other ones I could think about, all the present moment I could be sitting here holding my kid and he's smiling, and I'm like, whoa, that SOB leaving me a 2-star review. Maybe I should write to him and tell him, hey, don't you know there's 5 actually?
Yeah, man.
Restoring that. So I see all these signatures in this plant. Oh, and here's another good one too. Oh gosh, I would love going on herb walk with you, Gabriel. You take the plant and you squish it in your hands with your fingers like this, and it makes your fingers red. You take the head of St. John's wort, the flower, pop it off and squish it, and it bleeds. And that, and when, it turns blood red. No other, I don't know any other plants that turn blood red, but there's something that happens when people like you and I, human beings, animals, warm-blooded animals, the type of animals that don't put our eggs in the sand and cover them up and say, hey, I hope daddy doesn't go eat you, and I'm going to go into the ocean and I'll see you later. We're the type of people that when we see blood, we have a sympathetic response. We have a sympathetic resonance to our own pain, maybe even a schadenfreude kind of feel to it as well. Mm-hmm. I'd love for you to talk about that, but this plant conjures up that sympathy that we can, that we have within ourselves, this animal, I would say animal instincts, or what Rudolf Steiner would call the astral body, which I think is like a 1-to-1 to the autonomic nervous system, how it can respond to signals of the subconscious and clamp down and create tension and pain and dislocate us from our instincts in our animal body. But one of the things that I'm thinking about is when I'm working with plant signatures, and it's speaking to me about the abundance of medicine and the abundance of food, and maybe even it's not actually a language that we're speaking when we're with this Adamic green speak language, but instead it is this participatory signaling from nature that I receive, that I recognize, I signal back that I understand. And it is through that's the green speak. And it is to me, I feel like in your work with the Enneagram, that is how, this is one of the ways that you, like when I'm using the doctrine of signatures, that's my tool that I can use. And of course, anybody. And what you're showing us with your work is that anybody could also use the Enneagram to come to these particular means. So would you chat a little bit about that? And also, I mentioned Schadenfreude. Okay. You have a great weave on Schadenfreude that I would love to just dive into with you too.
All right, buddy. Yes. So I'll kind of go with the Schadenfreude, knock that off the list. It has come onto my radar very recently as I'm studying Uranus mythologically, because I want to have a better understanding of the difference between Uranus and Pluto. They both mythologically share an aspect of invisibility. And as you know, in mythology, Pluto has the hat that causes invisibility. It's sometimes called the helmet of Pluto, but there's also Uranus has an aspect of invisibility, even though his name means shiny, illuminating one. So I'm studying Uranus first. And in my research around Uranus, who is the father of Kronos, well before Zeus came along, well, Uranus was displaying that aspect of like consuming his own children, like tyrannical control, in to a psychopathic degree, one scale above what Kronos expressed. You know what I mean? Like Uranus is the original daddy issue that Kronos had to deal with, and then Zeus had to deal with it. So they're passing down this chop off your dad's, unit for freedom to get. But the thing about Uranus that I picked up on was that he actually gets satisfaction every time he eats one of his children or inflicts pain on others. There's oftentimes this little hint in the poetry of the myth about him smiling with pleasure when he inflicts pain on others. And I picked up on this in multiple stories, multiple times, and it just hit me really hard that I think one of the personality attributes of Uranus is Schadenfreude, and that is the getting pleasure from other people's suffering. And the personality type in the Enneagram system, Uranus lands in a number 6, which many mystics and people in our dimensions will look to the sun when they hear the word 6, the 6x6 magical square of the sun. Yep. It's all there. That is all there. You could put the sun in the number 6 spot and you could run with it and be perfectly fine. But for some reason on my path, Uranus is in the number 6 spot and I cannot unexplain him away. And so the number 6 personality is a loyalist with a shadow of fear, but PK and I have dug very deeply because I think fear is a vague word. I think all of the shadows of the Enneagram are a fear aspect of each personality type. So I don't like just throwing fear in the 6 corner and calling it good. So PK and I have kind of we've looked closer at the Greek words, and the word is anxiety. And we think that anxiety and doubt might be aspects of this shadow of the number 6. Yeah. And then I was talking to somebody who just kind of hit me up on Telegram, who mentioned trust and mistrust. And I was like, whoa, I've been using anxiety and doubt, but I like using trust or mistrust, like the loyalist.
Like the loyalist. I'm thinking of like a good dog or something like that gets has the trust of its owner and it feels safe and secure to do its thing. And also, of course, it's the loyalist. We're talking about people too, but
right.
That's the idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm looking at this number 6 in its Uranus aspecting, and I'm thinking about that mistrust, that shadow of fear. And I'm just pondering how much now this is kind of, I don't know. This is shadow work, right? This is shadow work. So think of how the person who you choose to be your life partner, you're married together, and you have this private agreement of how to conduct the home and the house. And this person who you've bonded with, one thing that is very important is that they also consider your enemies their enemies. It's very important that they see the same bad guy that you see when you go to, wage progress in the world. It's very important that they see the same enemy, or that you guys agree on who you do not like. And in a strange way, they also share that when you see your enemy suffer in the world, they are the first person to pat you on the back. You'll be like, oh yeah, I don't want to kick them while they're down. Well, your partner is like, no, babe, kick them while they're down. Kick them while they're down. They deserve it. You know what I mean? They're kind of rooting you on. They kind of give you permission to let your shadow express on the private a little more. You know what I mean? Because they're looking out for your good. So yeah, there's this aspect of enjoying the suffering of others. But I want to say this, again, with these words, we look at the surface level definition. We don't take it much further. I think we also, speaking for myself, I experience Schadenfreude in another kind of aspect. And the Greeks really talked about this more directly, about when you see somebody else suffering. I'm thinking of a car accident that I saw one time when I was driving in Florida. Crazy ass car accident. Dude zips by way, 80 miles an hour, maybe more, zips past us as we're trying to get on an exit ramp. And just after they almost cause us to crash, they go and do a shoulder pass on somebody, and there's construction in the shoulder lane, and they have to jerk back into traffic. They end up spinning out, hitting 4 or 5 other cars, and they spin on their nose. This car is spinning on its nose at 70 miles an hour down the road. And I'm just watching a car spin on its nose, and all these other cars are trying to get out of the way. And we witnessed this accident happen, and it's horrifying. It's just horrifying to be a witness of the event. But deep down inside, I have to admit, there is something inside of me that was like, I am so glad that's not me. I'm so glad that's not me. And I'm counting my lucky stars. I'm going to change my ways. I won't cuss again. God, I promise I won't say another bad word for at least a month. So in a strange way, the thanking of your own lucky stars when you see somebody else going through something horrible, I think that is also an aspect of Schadenfreude.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because that could invite the other participation that you mentioned, like, well, that's what you get,
Totally.
But also there's the deeper, it's almost like you transcend to the next level of Schadenfreude, but it's still there.
Yeah, totally.
And that's really cool.
I think Schadenfreude is going to pick up increasingly going forward. And to the extent, like, as I was studying this, in the aspecting of the number 6 in Uranus' personality type, I had to realize that one of my guilty pleasures in YouTube for many years, and I don't do it very much anymore because I feel guilt about it. I feel a strange shame, was self-defense instruction analysis videos, where they actually have CC cameras of people fighting for their lives in a mugging. Generally, it's somebody trying to steal their car or jack a gas station, and they show how the self-defense could have played out better to improve people's awareness in street smarts. But maybe 1 out of 4, I don't know, of those videos, I don't know how many, but people end up dying at the end of the video. And the guy doing the instruction video, he's like, well, this criminal is taking the room temperature challenge. And I'm like, oh, that's really funny. And yeah, maybe he deserved it. Maybe he didn't. Maybe we haven't seen some of the information that precipitated up to this video. We're just getting this little snippet and thinking that we know who deserves to live and die, And so that, for me, I was like, wow, this whole process of self-defense videos, it's kind of based on snuff films, just repackaged for educational purposes, you know. And there's a part of me that feels really gross about ever watching videos where people die and presuming to benefit from it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's another aspect of Schadenfreude that I think it's going to be made more and more appropriate for people to get pleasure out of other people's pain. You know,
it's almost like the social engineers are, if you will, have compressed and compressed and compressed, and then the Schadenfreude is the release valve, the catharsis. And here's a great example that James Kaplan brings up. He says there's Schadenfreude in people who didn't take the jab, and that's sad. It's true. Here's the thing. Regardless of where people were, everyone felt pain, right? People were feeling pain. They lost friends, and still working through healing. I mean, like, you know, find our own shadows, and we've healed ways, but there's also this collective pain that we could feel and tap into, even if we have worked through that. And I'm not, to be honest, like, I feel that pain too. You know, I lost friends. I lost a lot of friends. And so that makes me wonder if we're talking about the sixth station and Uranus and Schadenfreude, and I would like, what is the remedial virtue that you find for the sixth station that maybe we could become aware of, and a remedy out of this collective pressure cooker that we can all feel right now?
Yes. The remedial virtue is bravery, valor, and maybe trust. Like, you know, if the shadow is distrust, then the remedial virtue, or if the vice is distrust, then the remedy is trust. So bravery, which the Greeks, their word for bravery really means manliness. It really means manliness. But yeah, and then valor is also an aspect of this, you know, taking a leap. I mean, think about the day you got married, man. Like, all the courage, all the manliness that you had to bring forward into that one super important moment. You know,
I really wanted. It was like, I knew I was going to propose to my wife. We went on this great. We're still dating. We were going on this great trip. She took me all around Tuscany, all these sites every night. She was expecting it, and I had the ring with me, and I just couldn't do it. And I was visiting Italy, and it was my last night there, and they offered me some horse meat, and I'd never eaten horse meat before. I'd never eaten it, and it was like really crazy. So I had some horse meat, and I ate it, and I was like, I can fucking do this. And so I did it. So I knew the adrenaline and the iron and the tightly bound fascia of the horse, everything about it. And I know, like, to all of our vegan friends and horse loving people out there, you know, it's like, it's crazy, but it's part of the culture over there to eat the horse or whatever. So, and it's also part of my valor and bravery to try things, to take this leap of faith and be like, okay, I trust that this is acceptable and this is okay. And when I tried it, I could feel the stallion coursing through my veins, and I was like, "Will you marry me?" No, it was
wow, Kyle, that is such a glorious story, man. Wow, that is so cool. So, what does horse meat taste like? Is it?
It tastes like it just tastes like, I don't know, beef that's a little bit more irony. It has this like, beef is like, I think of like Taurian, bovine, Venusian kind of meal, and the horse is kind of like this Sagittarian, fiery. It has this aggression in it. It has this fiery element in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so profound. I love it.
Yeah.
One of the way markers on my journey around, you know, finding how the Enneagram fits into the tarot card so well is that, you know, the sixth card is the lover's card, and it has a marriage or a wedding depicted.
Yep.
And then the 15th card, which reduces to a 6, is the devil card. And I consider this depicting a divorce. You know what I mean? And so the Lover's card is like the trust aspect, and the Devil card is like the untrust or the fear or the anxiety aspect.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool. One of the things I was thinking about, just going back a little bit earlier, there was you were talking about Pluto has the invisibility helmet, right? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's an aspect with that. I watched this, that was a long time ago, but there was a breakdown on YouTube of Back to the Future Part 2. Have you ever seen that? Maybe breakdown videos, truth or video.
So brilliant. So brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. So it's all of the pantheon, and it's just reenacting the story of the Olympians. And I knew, and like Back to the Future was always like my favorite movie. I watched it so many times. I loved that movie. I just love Michael J. Fox, and how he the entrance to the movie of Back to the Future is Michael J. Fox's feet kicking the skateboard, and it reveals plutonium. So it's introducing him as Pluto, right? And then, of course, like there's Christopher Lloyd, who is the Zeus character, and then they got to defeat Kronos, the clock, and they need the help of Neptune under the sea dance, and they need the help of Pluto. And in Back to the Future 2, the way that he turns invisible is he just puts on his Joe Biden sunglasses and his hat, his invisibility hat, and he's now functionally invisible to the rest of the scene. And so that, yeah, when you were talking about Pluto and invisibility, I always thought that Pluto had that power too. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and I love the breakdown, because you never would have seen it. It was invisible to you until somebody points out that this is the hat of Pluto. And then you go watch the film and you realize people go right past him. They just walk right past him, and only from the camera angle can you see that he's there. But whatever this, the intrinsic invisibility of that hat was consistently passed forward without telling you what you were seeing, and you had to watch this decoder guide to be like, wow, the helmet of Pluto it's totally an artifact of consistency still in our art. It's still here in our art. Yeah, I love that breakdown. That was a good one.
Yeah.
I got one more kind of twilight word that occurred to me just recently, and I think it's great for this for the show tonight. And I think it also kind of falls into that number 6, maybe. It dawned on me that and this is a great example of how the twilight aspecting is it's both anding. You have to be able to both and a little bit to realize that these are two different words.
Whoa. You there?
The word social.
What, Gabe? You just
They got me.
Yep. Just go back.
Am I good?
Just go back 5 seconds. Yeah.
All right. Yes. So the word that we use in the public is that which is social. And intrinsic to all things social is the undisclosed sexual. And I'm looking at the word social, and I'm looking at the word sexual, and I'm realizing how these two phonetics are only negligibly different. Because when we're talking about social paradigms, the sexual drive is intrinsic to the motivations of all things social. You know what I mean? It really does boil down very often to sexual entendre or sexual exchange. And so I just love that one. That the word, every time I hear the word social from now on, I'm going to get a little secret giggle to myself that this is also talking about that which is sexual, but we've made it polite so we can have polite talks. Politics are polite talks, and so we would never at a dinner table while everybody's talking about social dynamics, you would be the black sheep to point out that these are actually sexual dynamics.
Here's a green speak reveal that's kind of weaving on that. We have mugwort, which is also known as an herb to St. John. It's not St. John's wort, but it can also be known as the herb of St. John. But the botanical name, Artemisia, there's Artemis, and vulgaris. And so vulgaris, we have that of the common, the social, but also the vulgar. And common, the word common, I mean, common? Who's common? But also, the word common, if we allow the C to have its other sound, it could be the summoning plant. This is a plant not only of the commoner, but of the summoner. Hey, come over here. Come over here. So there's a really cool green speak reveal with mugwort too, just in the name, the botanical name. And see, this is one of the things that we're talking about here is that like we're not just pointing at words and recognizing that like, oh well, if we called it something else, or if it was in a different language, we're using the value of the vibrational quality, the way that it's been shared throughout history, even going back to the Greek, Artemisia here, and the vulgar, to show, to point beyond the word, beyond the letters that separate us from the essence. We are going into the letters as the essence, to bring into the essence of what it is that we're seeing here, and an engagement of a plant that is capable of summoning or dispelling, or also bringing on a menstrual cycle, or summoning your dreams. You know, this is a plant that has a lot of historical use, and certainly with dreams. And then what are dreams also, but maybe that which we're taking inspiration of to summon into reality, right? Yes. So, and then, but then also just the word mugwort, you know, just like it was called that because it was used to brew beer. So there's this intoxicating element to it as well. So here we have the Artemis, you know, and everything that Artemis stands for as the Apollo, the twin of Apollo, right? Yep. And Apollo being the public, and here's Artemis, the twin of the private, the wild one, the wild side of me, but also the common side that everybody has, the vulgara, the common, the summoner. So all of that is weaved in right there with what you were just talking about.
I love that. You know, and you know, Artemis is she's the protector of the animals. I think of her as the guardian of the underdogs, and in a fun way that kind of comports to that animal spirit. Did you say Steiner would call it the etheric?
Steiner would call it the astral body.
That's it. Thank you. The astral body.
Yeah, the animal body.
Yeah. So those the bestial lower natures, as it were, are kind of in her domain. Mm-hmm. And something I've come to kind of appreciate about this, you know, some would call her the hedge witch. You know, she's always at the perimeter of the forest. It's a good place to leave some tobacco, right? Especially if you plan on doing some exchanging here. But I love pointing out that I think that that hedge, that liminal space that she's protecting, I think in our psychology that this is the line of your periphery. And so I think of like anything below where my hand is now, I can't see it when I look straight ahead. My hand is at the bottom of my periphery. Yeah. That is like the hedge. And I have to trust when I walk in the world, looking up at things, I have to trust that everything that I can't see, everything in the wilderness beyond my senses is going to go well, that there's not a pothole, or there's no snakes that are about to strike me down low. And so that peripheral hedge and the animal bestial nature of the subconscious. I think all of these are intrinsic to our anatomy, but think of this. When you're in the movie theater, you generally recline a little bit and you generally look up even more to whatever you're taking in for entrainment. And when you look upward at something, it actually increases the subconscious. You're actually making more allowance for that, the space that you're taking for granted.
Wow. Yeah, that's really profound. Because it's just in my experience with making an offering before in this liminal space, before entering in the domain of Artemis, I'm here, I am leaving the public, and now I'm going into this wilderness for perhaps commodification or pleasure or whatever, because I'm harvesting herbs. But I'm also making an offering to see if there's any animals that want to cross my path or speak to me. And this would be, the offering for Artemis and all that she protects. And in the interactions with these animals, if I'm looking straight at an animal with my eyes right on the front of my head, as a predator has, there's a tension that's there. But if I'm working in that space that you were just highlighting there in the Artemisian periphery, and I'm trying to communicate with the hawk, not by looking at it, but but I could feel it. Now I'm trusting that I could feel it, and it's speaking now into my animal instinctual body, that body that you're talking about, which is like, look, give me something to eat, something to have sex with, and some shelter when that tornado comes. Like that's that animal instincts that we all have too. Wow, that's really profound. One of the things that I think about too, and just to add on to this hedge and liminal space between the public Apollyon projective, emoting my vibe in public, walking into a room and everyone could feel my glory, or everyone could feel my shame. That's something that we could feel, or somebody could feel my anger. My gait hasn't changed. There's nothing really, but it's that vibe. It's that Apollyon vibe that comes out. That's also through that autonomic nervous system. And that would be the stress, the sympathetic aspect, that moving, projecting outwards. And then there's the parasympathetic, which is that rest, digest, shelter, sleep, all of that Artemisian, and the hedge that we're this periphery that we're entraining ourselves to in a movie or in a shamanic exercise like walking through the forest, is opening up that space between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic that allows for flow. That's flow right there. That's where it is. It's in that space. And so this can be achieved with breathing exercises and all. There's like the masters know all about that space. And that's all throughout allegory as well. Like I'm thinking of one of the iterations of the Greenman, which is, gosh, what's his name? Al-Qadir, which is the Greenman that Moses went to visit. He's in the Islamic text, but Moses basically was the alchemist, the wisest, the most logical minded and scientist. Is there anyone smarter than me? And he goes basically into the woods and finds this, Green Man type figure. And it said that he was between two rivers or two seas. And that's what I'm seeing here is this, there's the sea of the parasympathetic and there's the sea of the sympathetic, the dominance. And it's in that domain that's where that flow, that Green Man, that language was available to Moses.
Awesome, buddy. Yeah, man. I love the word liminal. It's such a good word.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about there's a big buzz about the bees. And of all the humans on this planet who is in touch with the state of the bees and the being, I just wanted to feel out, like, what's your take on the state of bees this year in particular?
Well, I haven't seen, I've seen, Yeah, I've seen more bees this year than I have in previous years. I started introducing some electroculture design into my garden space. And when I hooked up, I had an underground copper line. And when I hooked it up to the antenna line, all of a sudden a bunch of bees started coming over. And I was like, this is a great sign. This is great because they're, I don't particularly sense this subtle electrical current, but they do. And back in time, I used to do on my Instagram, I used to do a bee of the day. So I would go out and I would try to find a bee and I would take a picture of it. And so I always thought of it like this. I'm turning the tables on the bees. They always come to my picnic. And now I'm always like, oh, cover the juice or whatever because the bees are coming over and they're like, ah. But now I'm turning the tables on them. So I go up to them. They're on a flower. They're at their picnic. And then here, and then here's me coming up with my camera. Hey, hold still. And so I started getting really friendly with the bees because I was able to hear the tone of their parasympathetic, their parasympathetic buzz, and their parasympathetic buzz was F sharp. Oh, I just lost my headphone. Yeah, F sharp. So when they were in that's them relaxed. But when I heard that F sharp minor come out, that was a little bit more aggression. There was some aggression there. They were saying, "Get the F away."
Remembering the Alamo.
Yes, right, exactly. So when I heard that there was just tiny shift of what I would say a minor frequency, and I know it was F sharp because I would sit outside with my guitar and I would tune it up. It's in 440, but I would tune it up. Oh, how dare you, 440? I would tune it up and I would be like, okay, where is that buzz? That's it. That's the sound of the bees. And so I'd start singing. I would start writing songs in F sharp major, that is, just to like be a friend of the bee. And then I would be able to go get my picture and my bee of the day and post it on Instagram. But what is F sharp minor? It seemed like that one had a...
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, that blows my mind. So the F sharp has come up in my research in quite a few ways, but I totally correspond it to the number 6. We're totally dancing on the number 6 all night tonight, buddy. But F is the 6th letter, right?
And that's that's the shape of the beehive too. That's the shape of the hexagram.
Excellent. Yes, I love it. And then also that's Apollo in the pantheon of the Greek gods. Apollo and Artemis are in the number 6, but Apollo plays the F's harp. He plays a F's harp. He's a harp player. And so F sharp is in Apollo's lap. This is an old project.
Apollo learned the art of divination from the Melisai, which when he went into town and he killed the serpent, whatever his serpent's name was, the one that was living there. He said, he said, this is going to be my temple, and this is where the Delphi was established. But at the time, it was still wilderness, and it was still Gaian nymphs and everything like that. And so it was the bee nymphs, the Melisai, that taught him the art of divination. That is a different art of divination from Mercury. Mercury's is more of, from what I in my research, and I can't get the receipt. I've been trying to find it, but his was called, but Mercury's was more of a stragulomancy, which is the bones and dice and dominoes and things like that. Whereas Apollo's is more of like future telling, or this type of like whisper of nature, basically, right?
Yes, that is super powerful. I love that, dude. Yeah. And Mercury is number 5 in the pantheon, and Apollo's number 6 right next to him. And they're very much interrelated. On Mercury's birthday, he gets in on the day he's born, he gets into a caper where he steals some of Apollo's cows and leads them back and forth backwards in the field. It's a long story. But at the end of the story, this is where Apollo and Mercury, they have a court battle, and they have to come to an agreement, and they exchange. Mercury gives Apollo the harp, which is made out of the turtle shell, and then Apollo gives Mercury the Thrasis staff, which some people associate with Dionysus, that staff of Dionysian rites.
Mm-hmm.
But this, I think this is in the word allowed, like Apollo, and wed is Mercury, Wednesday. And so the Apollo allowed Mercury to keep the calves and have this little treaty exchange. And I just want to point at so if F sharp is number 6, I think of C flat might be pointing over at the number 3, because C is the third letter, but the third personality in the pantheon is Bacchanalia, or Bacchus, or and and he plays the flute. He plays the C flute. And so he's a flute player in the number 3 spot and a harp player in the number 6 spot. So yeah, F sharp is in the 6 and the C flat is over in the 3. And I just love the possibility that these Greek deities are still holding their instruments in our musical language, potentially. Yeah, I love that. The C flat in the F sharp of Dionysus and Apollo.
Wow. Yeah. The bees. What about you? What do you think about the bees right now?
Well, I was a little worried when the headlines came out, because I did experience in Indiana, they definitely have sprayed over the past few years. I think we even talked about that once last year. But the thing that kind of tipped me into suspecting the headline is a bunch of BS is because it was launched as Mars was in Cancer. And Mars was in Cancer for quite a while, for almost a month at least. Mm-hmm. And it was in that time that Mars is in Cancer that the story about the bees dying was kind of buzzing here and there and everywhere. And that's profound because the beehive constellation is in Cancer. And so waging war on the bees seemed to be what the zeitgeist was being led to think of. But I just look at the stars and I'm like, well, no, that's just Mars going through Cancer, and they're keeping us syncopated to the signs and symbols of the seasons. And as you're telling me that you think there's more bees than ever, I wonder if what is it called when agriculture with the wire wraps and the crystals, what is that called?
Electroculture. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I'm wondering if electroculture is actually caught on to such a degree that the bees are actually giving preferential treatment to the electroculturalists. And so anybody who's doing the electroculture is getting extra bee action, and everybody else is like, what did we do to offend the bees?
Yeah, that is really cool. I to think about, making some of these technologies to get an upper hand in nature as well, these subtle technologies. And it's really for the good of all, but I'm staking a claim for my garden, really.
Yeah, man. Yeah, buddy.
And these, wow. One of the things I'm thinking about too is lemon balm, which is called Melissa, and it's one of the other names for lemon balm is bee balm. So how it has this this great honey aspect to it. Let's go to another plant and the sky connection. I think that's pretty cool. Let me see here. I'm share screen. I'm still a newbie to this. Somebody put this this comment here. Let's see here. This was going back to the horse. Let's see. Thank you. Create wild wine, BBQ whiskey. Perhaps horse eating is the proposal bachelor party now only celebrated pre-wedding. No, it's hilarious. My friend, when I had a bachelor party, my friends, we went tubing on this cute little trout stream, and we went camping in this farmer's field. And in the morning, where everyone was like super hungover, the farmer let out the cattle to pasture. So there's all these cows running through our camping spot. We're like, here's the ladies. Oh man.
The running of the bulls.
Yeah, right. This is a plant that has so much green speak in it. Vervain, which let's see here. The botanical name is verbena. There's verb. There's this verb aspect to it. Actionable plant. And we call it hoary vervain. This is one that grows a lot around me, but a lot of the vervains, they all have the same integrated properties. This is the one that we just have here. Hoary, because hoary means furry, I guess. But it has these like nice, elegant looking spikes. And one of the ways that it's really helpful in the body is it's helpful for the Virgo. It's really helpful for the Virgo because I would call this the idealist plant or the list maker plant, or the one that becomes so obsessed with executing that can't actually make any progress. The perfectionist procrastinator.
Wow.
Doing lots and lots of internal functions, and would prefer not to have the spotlight on them, just like the Virgo and its space in the cave right down there. You know, if your liver's talking to you, if your gallbladder's talking to you, boy, that's some news right there, right? We don't really like any news coming out of the cave, the Virgo hermit cave. And the word hoary vervain reminds me of hoary virgin, or Virgo I'm looking at the Virgo constellation. Let's see here if I can put this on the screen. But in Virgo, the constellation, we have she's holding a shaft of wheat, right? There's this that's Spica there, and that's a really relevant star on the horizon that people know about. Here's Virgo. She's holding this. Oops, you probably don't see it yet. It's because I got to do that. So here's Virgo. She's holding this grain of wheat. But that to me also just looks like that plant we were just looking at. This vervain plant that has this kind of, so the way that it's depicted, I mean, this is just an arbitrary example, right? Because this culture survives on wheat, and there's another one that maybe survives on corn. And then we talked about this with the oats, and how maybe the provenance of the Quakers into the New World have this. This is why maybe the virgin, which is right here at Spica, is the beginning, or the elliptical. What is this? The elliptical beginning of what? The moon's phase or something like that. Is that right?
Yes, pretty much. Some calendars consider September to be the actual lunar New Year. Yeah. And this is all really profound to me, Kyle, because I have a version of my Enneagram that is not just card number 1 goes in position number 1, card number 2 goes in position number 2. I've done a derivative where I've actually taken the constellations by size and put the prime numbered constellations on the Enneagram, just as an experiment. And I got really heavy pings with Virgo, which is the second largest constellation by size, which puts it in the number 1 spot in my Enneagram. But the Muse, who is in number 1, she's a orator. She's a polyhymnia, the muse of public speaking. But the personality type of number 1 is a perfectionist. It's a reformer. It's somebody who's going to write the lists and just sit and obsess and let perfection become the enemy of progress. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's totally one of the personality types of the number 1. In the horror of her being hairy, I think of Polyhymnia, the muse, she's often leaning on a podium or a stone, a talking stone. So she's an orator. She's a master of oretic
Wow.
arts and rhetorica.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And that plant is so bold and, prideful. It's just standing very upright.
Totally. Yes. It's definitely got this erect quality. One of the signatures here is, let's see here, boom, is back to stage here, is lots of energy above, no energy below. Like all about mental performance and leading with my mind. But if something comes to push me over, boy, it's a real pushover. And in the body, this can present as impotence.
Wow.
So performance anxiety, right? Performance anxiety, everything's got to be perfect. And then there's this impotence aspect too, because of the I don't know, lots of issues with the nervous system. So this plant, when you taste it, it's so bitter. Ooh, it's bitter. It's shaking your down your spine bitter. And it's that shaking down the spine that wiggles apart the sympathetic and the parasympathetic just a little bit, so that it's not that sympathetic dominance overtaking. And by the way, when I say sympathetic dominance, I'm talking about it from the Virgo lens, which is proper, right, doing things right. Here's my list. I got to cross them off in order. Here's your list, by the way. And I also wrote them in order for you to do. And so when we come across a vervain type of person, they can really shake from have somebody throwing a wrench in their plans, right? Mm-hmm. And that keeps them from operating laterally to advance. And so what this plant does is because you have that bitterness, it kind of shakes away that sympathetic dominance, which isn't anger, which isn't frustration or resentment. It is perfectionism and inability to leap into a different direction. And so that's what this plant is symbolizing by the way that it looks too. It just looks like an erect plant. And also one of the things I call it too is the plate spinner plant, because of the way that it blooms, it looks like it's holding all these little plates.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so here's the plate spinner. I can do the dishes because I do them right. When you do the dishes, you stack them all weird and they don't dry right. Here's my other plate that I'm spinning. But if you get the car wash, you always go to the touchless car wash, and we got to get the touch one because of every time I do the vacuum, or every time you do the vacuum, it's kind of like you miss the corners and stuff like that. It's like we have the vervain person is stacked up all of these plates, and because of that, they're holding all of this energy up here, and no longer action. They're no longer actionable because they are static. And so that's why it's really cool that the botanical name of this plant is Verbinia. It's Verbinia. It's telling you look, hand off the plate. Somebody else can spin it. Somebody else can do the dishes. And it doesn't have a sedative effect to the type A, to the performance person, to the person that really does want to have these spreadsheets and lists and make sure everything's going right. It helps somebody recognize that element of trust and balance, which is interesting because when you're talking about the one position, it's like going up to the 9 to offer to get take away some of these plants, please balance them.
Yes, totally.
And over here to the 2 here, you could take some of the glory for a job well done. And by doing so, we get our feet back on the ground. We are verbing again. We are verbing once again in space and time.
I love it. Yeah, man. The future tense verb weave will never stop rewarding me. You know what I mean? The idea that the Greeks had verbs that were future tense. I just love trying to move my mind into what that would be like to to I don't even know how to say it, but for all of our verbs to have some kind of commitment to the future, that you could, it's almost like we gave away future tense verbs because they're too committal. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so now if we're going to commit to a future action, to a future verb, we only have a few words that we use, will, shall, shalt. Yeah. But then on the flip side, from that old weave, I kind of realized that the future tense verbs are relegated to the context of giving a command order. And so we actually do use future tense verbs, but it's only when you're in a bossy position. So if I say
jump, I say
how
high.
Right. When I say Kyle, play that song. When I say play, I'm giving you a future tense verb. But that's like the limited context that future tense verbs manifest in our language is in a command order. And so in a weird way, there's kind of there's something of being bossy, being the one calling the shots, to actually presume to harness future tense verbs. And I think that could be very empowering for a lot of people. I think we've been discouraged from just speaking directly to get our needs met. And because we're tiptoeing through the verbanium Horus, we're tiptoeing through the verbaniums. We don't speak directly when we just need somebody to do what I tell you to do. You know what I mean? And we dress it up and make ourselves, and we even self-limit by saying like, hey, I don't want to be bossy, or I hope you don't mind if I give you a very direct command order. And it is a single word future tense verb, then I need you to see it through. So yeah, that's kind of some of the thoughts around this, the verb, the whole weave around verbs. The 8s, 9s, and 1s are in the body grouping, but I think they're also in the action group. They're external of ourselves. They're in the action realm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about children actually has this great dynamic of reorienting your language to be able to communicate what I want to do in the future. And this could be like the next thing, right? But we're still talking about the future. Yeah. And I guess I don't have a good example, but my son is 3 now. He says, because yesterday he didn't bring his shovel inside. I told him to, he didn't listen. So I told him, tomorrow your shovel is in timeout. And then he came out to me today. He said, Dad, last year you put my shovel in timeout. So everything in the past is last year and everything in the future, including when we have to go to the bathroom in 5 minutes, is tomorrow. Wow. And so, in a way, it's kind of like, a gnome or an elf or something like that I have to like trick into come with me to this great adventure. Like, what? Look what I found. Look, what the heck is that? What's that, Daddy? Look, come over here. Look. Now, while we're in here, let's go to the bathroom. Right. And I always have to, I feel like I'm constantly playing language games with a little gnome. So maybe children are the way to reclaiming our relationship with the command, softening the command to future tense verbs. Because if I tell them something like go to the bathroom, there's automatically that resistance. There's that power dynamic that presents itself. So I wonder if in future tense verbs there was this ability to, to move curiously through time as opposed to chronologically through time as well. You know what I mean?
Nice. Yeah, man. That's cool. I love that. It's like coaxing a gnome.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. I got one more plant to talk about here.
All right.
How you doing on time?
Oh, all the time you need, my friend.
Nice. Me too, by the way.
Nice.
I'm at the shop right now, and I could be here. I came to the shop. This is the display of the shop behind me here. I came here so that I can just be free to talk and talk and talk. This is burdock, and I love the way that this plant points to the bear in so many ways. I mean, it looks kind of fuzzy. It has this resemblance to the bear. And the botanical name of burdock, let's show you here, is Arcticum.
Whoa.
Artium. It used to be Artium, but it used to be Arcticum. But Arctium is the bear. It's of the bear, right? That's what it means. And so it's almost like one of the things I think about with this plant is, you've seen this one before, right? This big old weed all over the place, right? With these big, huge leaves. And some of the signatures of this is like, whenever you see a big leaf in nature, you could think of the lungs, or you could think of something big on your body, like the skin. This is a really great skin remedy. It's got a nice relationship with the lungs too. It's got a great relationship with the liver. And the way that I get to that is because when you're walking through the woods and you get these burrs all over you, where do they gather? They gather on your hips. And the hips are ruled by Sagittarius. And Sagittarius rules the liver.
Nice.
The woods are probably hippie anyway. So this has this great connection with the liver via Sagittarius, via traveling around. You know, this plot of land sucks. I'm out of here. I'm going to get on your dog and go wherever I want. But it makes me wonder, is this plant named after the bear because it kind of has this resemblance to a bear? Or does it have a resemblance to the bear because the bear eats it? That's one of the first things that the bear eats when it wakes up in hibernation. It says, whoa, look at these big old juicy roots that are filled with oil and are helpful for my digestion and packing on weight. This is a great remedy for anybody who's like looking to gain weight, or also looking to lose weight. So you could think of the bear constitution. Somebody who's like the big, giant, I'm going to go hibernate bear, or somebody who's the emaciated, I just woke up, what day is it? What month is it bear? And and so now, the question of what came first, the shape of this plant or the bear, or are they intrinsically entwined based on their shape, and therefore that begets their function as well? Like that's the resonance. This is what I'm talking about with Greenspeak. Yeah. And so there's so much about, and then even the word burdock, it sounds like bear. It sounds like bear dock. You could say bear dock as well. So burrs, let's see here. Greenman of Scotland. Okay, here's a Greenman right here. Here's a Masonic Greenman if you ever seen one. Look at this dude. Can you, where is he? Here we are.
He looks like he's got a little schmutz on the side there. And that's amazing. It's a whole suit made out of that.
Thousands and thousands. This is a great honor for the Burryman of Queensferry, Scotland, to get dressed up in thousands of burrs. Hey, I've tried to pick off like 10 of them at one point, and it's just a pain in the ass. But here's a guy, it's like, put me in the burr suit and give me 2 poles and some Masonic Scottish Rite Freemasonry handlers to walk me about town. Wow. This happens in August, when it's probably the hottest time of year in Scotland. And so it goes around this little 7 mile, I think it's 7 miles. It's probably some Scottish number or some Freemason number. And they go walk around town in this, all around the neighborhoods. And it's considered bad luck to not offer the Burryman scotch. So everybody is outside of their door with with a thing of scotch and a straw sticking out of it. And they all put it up in the Burry man's face. And so he's drinking all this scotch. And it's like, have you ever wondered how Santa ate all those cookies in one day? No. I wonder how this dude drank all that scotch. Look at him. He's getting wasted. But then he probably gets sober by sweating his ass off in the Burry man suit. So this is here's a form of the Green Man, and
big time.
And all the great green speak that Burdock can show us through its signatures, through its name, through its botanical name, which is, some jokesters in, I don't know, the halls of the academies in Basel, Switzerland or something came up with, right? So
big
it's like,
time. Bingo.
it's not like Adam named that plant Arctium, but it is. But that's the thing. It is like Adam named it, because we all have that capacity to name something or to point to something, and that those words, regardless of the language, to have that little nugget of truth that will help reveal a bigger meaning. And then we just pile it on our own tools. You got your Enneagram, got the doctrine of signatures. We could use them both. Boom. And we find the myth, we find the mythology, we find the poetry, we find all of the ways that this speaks to truth of deep down into our psyche and connects us further with spirit. And that's what I think this is really the green speak is all about. It's not about defining it. It's about participating with it.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, man. Yeah. I highly recommend to everybody one of Socrates' dialogues. It's called the Cratylus. And in the Cratylus, it's Socrates talking to a couple of young bucks on the rise, and he's talking about language. And this entire dialogue is, I think, one of the cornerstones of the green speak research, even the whole. Yeah, it's a must read for anybody interested in the concept of speak, of this green language, this Adamic language, because Socrates is really going in on the aspect of like, oh, you kids are calling it this, that, and the other thing today. And does that really make sense, the words you kids are using for this idea? And if you think about what the elders used to call this idea and listen to the sounds of it, and he's breaking down, like he's doing ancient etymology for these kids. And he's really touching on, I think, how the old phonetics were superior because they have more fidelity to the ambient meaning of the sound. He's really getting into the phonetics. And I could see academia saying and dismissing the Cratylus, like there's no more treasures or hidden mysteries in the Cratylus. It's been around for so long, we've scoured it for everything that it's worth. And they might want to dismiss the Cratylus and say, oh, that's just Socrates describing onomatopoeia before we had a word for onomatopoeia. But I think that's a half assessment. I think there's more beyond that dismissal. I think he is including onomatopoeia, that is in there, but there is something more about how these phonetics are. I mean, the only way to simplify it is that the phonetic holds a truth upon which our physiology recognizes that this phonetic is truly indicating what we're led to associate with it. You know what I mean? There's a higher fidelity.
I do. There's this, Eileen McCusick. So she's got this new course and study called Sing the Body Electric. So you know her work with the tuning forks, and she's in there feeling people's etheric fields, and the tuning fork makes a particular sound, and she has a corresponding map of the anatomy of the biofield and is able to translate this. And this is a language. That's a language, what it is. But one of the things that she's doing now, and she's got together with a couple of Australian musicians, and she's mapped out the tonality of basically what sounds like baby words. When you say ha, you are activating the forward projection of your throat chakra. And when you say mo, you are activating the backwards projection. So
Wow.
this is not only, this is according, in her work, it's not about how you say the ha. It's about or finding it to be in tune. What she's really trying to teach people is, how does it feel to say this and activate that channel? Does it? And also, when I say ha, is there some tension there? I don't really know. That's giving us information about our physiology. And this is the tone that we're doing. And this, one of the things that I love about the Sanskrit language too, is that, or at least how it's described, and maybe this is as Sanskrit as is brought to us today, it might be what Socrates was pointing to, this pre-Greek, ancient Greek etymological source, where the words, the vibratory patterns of the words had that fidelity that resonated with the archetype and the essence of what it is that we're talking about in nature or within ourselves, or the connection to that, bridging that connection. So sometimes when I'm on my way to work and I want to get to work and I want my words to be heard, I don't want them to fall away, and I want myself to feel confident, I'll be in the car and I'll go, ha, 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 and I'll try and shake out all of the nervousness that I have about ha, and I'll do the ha, 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 ha. Oh, that one feels weird. Ha, ha. And I'll find all of the different patterns in that. And this is funny too, because when somebody has a sore throat, one of the things I tell them is, one of the best remedies that you can do is cayenne pepper, just a little bit of cayenne pepper and some water, and then warm water, and gargle it down. But don't just gargle. Don't just go, go. Do the range and find where that vibrational frequency is that resonates in this particular area. So go, oh, that's the part, and hold it in there, and then feel the tissues moving in there. So yeah, there is something that is about the way that the word is percussed out of the mouth, the way that it's not just the pressure on the air, but there is a
quality.
There's a quality that is in the ether itself, reflected through the ether, and it's almost like conjuring that when you're actually speaking the vibratory. And this reminds me of cymatics, right? The cymatic patterns, how you can have the plate of sand and strike the bow or whatever, and it makes that particular pattern. Well, it makes me think about that in the doctrine of signatures too. These patterns that are emerging, those are the patterns that are emerging not because nature is like, oh, I'm going to make this pattern someday, but it's making this pattern of a violet. This is a 5-petaled flower, not like the rose. This is a 5-petaled flower that looks like the bovine, that looks like the Taurian features.
Big time.
And so this also has a resemblance to the uterus. There's like heart-shaped leaves. I don't know if you can see them here. And here's the fallopian tube in the uterus. So yep. There's a difference between the 5-petaled flowers of the Venusian herbs, which are opening up in their 5-petaled geometric way, in the same way that we see Venus moving across the sky. Now, Paracelsus would have said, he had as a contemporary, I can't remember his name. He had a contemporary that was out of Rome that was employed by the Medicis. And this guy also had a doctrine of signatures pattern, but his was about the heavens emanate their patterns onto the world, and then therefore the everything that we see is like a representation of the heavens. And Paracelsus was bottom up. He was more of like a Platonic kind of Neoplatonist, whereas the other guy was kind of like a Aristotelian kind of logic. What was his name? Anyway, it'll come to me. But which is it's participating in when we see the plants with 5 petals, like the rose, is that because it has the same petals as the rose, or as Venus, because Venus is casting it down on the rose? Or is it that this rose emanates that same quality, and it has this participatory quality with pushing it up, and what we see in the plant world and what we see in the sky is connected from its essential quality, as opposed to, from heaven above,
Yeah, man. Yeah. Dude, that is glorious. I love it. That is such amazing advice. Like, I'm going to marvel at that advice for a long time, Kyle. The idea of gurgling the water and actually
Yeah.
finding the frequency, the pitch that it needs to, it kind of unlocks the problem. You know what I mean? You're finding where it belongs.
Yeah.
Where to store that data. That is so helpful, so useful. I love that. I wanted to mention that cradulus, the word in reverse, is almost silly talk. When you read the word backwards, it's silly tark. Silly tark is the word cradulus in reverse. And that was my first hint that, of course, there's plenty more mysteries that academia is not going to reveal to everybody. But, and then also regarding the ha, with Eileen's work on the,
Yes.
something that kind of brings to my mind is a revelation I had about, I learned that when dogs pant to one another, it's considered an invitation to play. And this is a strange thing with my dog. When he sees another dog way, way far away, the dog cannot hear my dog, but my dog cannot resist but go as soon as he sees another dog way far away. Even if that dog doesn't see him, he's just compelled to pant. And I learned that that's him inviting playfulness. And that was so rewarding to me to understand what's going on in his world. But then it kind of hits me that's exactly, that humans speak that exact same language when we laugh with one another. When you laugh, like, how would you spell it out? H-A-H-A-H-A is how we laugh to one another. And so in the coolest way, we speak dog. We totally speak dog. In our most emotional moments, we're totally speaking dog.
Here I am speaking dog with you, my dog.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, man.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking, like, there's even an aspect, if you're really absurdly laughing, of like sticking your tongue out too. It's like, even that is primally playful, I think.
Well, consider my tail wagging right now. This has been really fun, man.
Big time, Kyle.
I think we nailed it. I think we nailed it. The point was, let's come in, let's just have some fun, let's ride some waves, and let's have some laughs. So thank you so much for your time, Mr. Slick Dissident. All of your stuff is linked in below. Do you want to make any pitches for yourself or your work? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, actually, there's not much on the Slick Dissident to-do list. I've been doing some live streams with my buddies PK and Chris Miner over on
Love those, man. You guys are so much fun.
Yeah, great. I'm glad you dig it. Yeah, so that's kind of something we're kind of doing weekly. We don't really have a set day, so just kind of keep your ears to the ground. We might just pop in at the last minute sometimes, but yeah, that's going on. And yeah, slickdissident.com. Working on some merch coming forward that I'm really excited about. But yeah, that's about it. And you know what? I think our buddy Mario, he invited me to do a little sound blurb coming up on one of his.
I just recorded it. I just recorded mine a few minutes ago. I got to say, he's in the chat right now. I'm going to send Mario. I got you. Send it over. So that's cool. We're going to both be rapping about Gemini, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think it's you, me, and he mentioned Robert Phoenix might get in there too.
No way.
Yeah,
wow.
buddy.
Now
yeah.
he puts here in this comment, great trio. Come on. Now that's a great trio. Nice one, Mario. That's great. Cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, looking
Yeah,
forward
I
to
won't
that.
spill. I won't spill the beans because I want it to go out. Check that out on Mario and Michelle Symbolic Studies podcast that's coming up for Gemini. That is first of all, their episodes are great. Total pros, really nice, and great homies too. But
Big time.
my homie, my brother, I love you. It's a great pleasure to speak with you and share some airwaves with you. And
Love you too, Kyle. Big
much
time.
love. Yeah.
Yeah.
Until the next time.
Big respect, y'all.
Ciao.